Okay guys, so we're going to go over some concepts on wall wrestling defense or cage wrestling defense. I've got Tim here, one of the pro MMA fighters, and we're just going to explain 3 or 4 concepts that you guys can implement into your game. They're not necessary techniques, mainly concept based, which is how I like to teach. Right, so let's get into it. The first one is understanding our body position. Right, so the concept of how our body should be, what we need to know, what to do with our body and what not to do with our body. And this is mainly when a guy is pinning my lower body, how my body position should be, as well as upper body attacks like body locks and so forth. So if Tim shoots that double leg on me and I don't have correct body position, what I mean is I'm square totally now. All right. It's easy for him, first of all, to connect his hands because my legs can only go as wide as possible. And if I pull my legs out with my hips pointed to him, there's always going to be basically a smaller position going up towards my waist. So towards my knee, it's wide, but if he slides his hands up, it's going to go to the smallest part of my body, which he's going to be able to connect his hands with. All right. Now, the next thing is that when I have my body position, I never want to lean over him. I allow him now to pick me up because I'm putting my weight and center of gravity on his strongest point. All right. So again, I don't want to be square and I don't want to be leaning over him. All these 2 concepts, all right, are going to put you in much more disadvantaged positions and allow the individual for an easier takedown. All right. What I do want to do is I want to turn towards his head. So if you see now, my torso is turned towards his head. I want to turn my feet towards his head. So my hips and both my feet, my toes, are pointing towards my head. Now, what this does, it allows me to move my legs, which means he can't get a connection in terms of connecting his hands. It's hard for him now to pick me up because I'm not leaning over him, okay? And a big thing is I'm able to lean into the fence, take my knees, pin them into the fence. So it's hard for the individual to get really around my legs and get connection. As well as now I have base, I have balance, right? I can go down, up, forward and backwards onto the fence, leaning in. Compared to if my toes and my hips are pointing towards you, right? It's really hard for me to kind of move around. It's also easy for him to pin my hips, and if you can hear me talking now, I carry a lot of pressure on him compared to if I turn into him, right? I don't have a lot of pressure. He can really push into me and there's not much pressure that I'm taking. I'm able to have a lot more mobility, right? And I can then use this good position to stall the fight, right? And being able then to implement the other concepts that we have, right? So again, if Tim shoots on me now, and I'm square, he can connect, I lean over him and he's able to pick me up, all right? If he shoots on me, I turn everything to his head. I already am a much more better advantage, harder for him to connect his hands, right? Harder for him to pick me up, and I have much more mobility, all right, by leaning into the wall and using the wall to my advantage than him using the wall to his advantage because of an incorrect body position. So, that's the first concept, is just understanding how my hips, my feet, my head and hands need to be positioned in terms of a defensive for the wrestling. The next concept that we're going to go over is connection of hands, right? And a good example for you guys to go and watch is BJ Penn, right? He was very, very difficult to get taken down off the fence, and he used this concept specifically only, and that's a 2-on-1. So when an individual shoots in, he would literally go to a 2-on-1. So as you can see here, he would go to one hand, get that 2-on-1 and straighten his arms or move the arm around, right? What this does is it's hard for the individual now to connect his hands, to restructure, and as soon as there's a disconnection of hands, there's nothing keeping me here. If his hands were connected, my hips and movement can't move out. But as soon as this is disconnected, he can push into me, I can run my hips out and start escaping that position. Super, super easy concept. making sure that my hand's on the inside. So if you look here, my hand's on the inside, and I'm literally, from my hand on the inside, my outside hand connects to the wrist, and my inside hand now connects to the wrist, right? Now, this doesn't allow any type of connection to my back. So if it connects to my bum here, it's very hard to connect, right? If it's connection, okay, if I have 2-on-1, it's hard for him to connect, right? Even from here, if he starts going to my back now, I can follow him and circle out and not allow that grip, right? So again, I can mimic these two concepts together in terms of Tim shooting in, good body position. From this good body position, I can swim my hand in, get this 2-on-1, keep this 2-on-1, run my hips around left or right, and get off the wall and create good defense from a double leg, single leg, and even body lock. Same thing, if he shoots that single leg from here, right, and I get that 2-on-1, and I'm not allowing that connection, keeping it away, pulling it up. If it's hard for him to connect, nothing here to pin me on this side of the wall, I can run my hips out and then start a good defense on that. The last connection and concept that we'll talk about is my head position, right? So specifically from upper body attacks, so if the individual has either a body lock or a single leg and his head is high, right? What we're going to do is get my head in between, right? So now his head is disconnected from my chest. So anytime a guy has a single leg or body lock, I want to make sure that his head is disconnected from my torso, that it's not connected, and he can break my posture now with his head and control my balance with his arms. Same thing with the body lock, right? If he has control with both, he's basically going to take me down. If I create some type of frame and put my head in between, now for him to suck me in, it's very, very difficult, and I'm able to swim in to underhooks and other types of techniques, right? But that head frame allows you to not get taken down. It gives you the time to implement any other techniques that you're working on. But without that, his head will be connected to your chest. He will be on a single leg, or you'll be on a body lock, which means that he can get to a chest-on-chest position. He can control your posture, make it very hard for you to keep your balance, and eventually take you down, all right? So understanding you can't do that from a double leg. We are only doing that concept from a single leg and a body lock position. Okay, so quick overview over the three that we've done. All right, the first one is our body position, pointing everything to the head. He shoots in, I point everything to his head, all right, making sure that I'm leaning into the fence, using the fence to my advantage, right, and not using it to disadvantage. I obviously have an overhook here, so he doesn't take my back and come out to the side. Right? And I'm pointing everything, have good balance, good mobility, and it's going to be harder for him to get a connection of his hands and start his system progress of getting the takedown. The next thing is driving my hand on the inside, already having my hand on the inside when I turn, and getting a 2-on-1 straight away. When I have that 2-on-1, he can't get any connection, he can't keep me on this side, and I'm able to run my hips out. There's nothing for him to keep based on. If I don't get that 2-on-1 and he connects his hands, there's going to be a bit of a problem from the double or the single. As soon as I disconnect that hand, I connect this. Even if he wants to run to my back, okay, I can just follow him, right? Keeping that connection for myself. The last one, or second last one, is for anything on the upper body, a single leg high, or a body lock. I need to create some type of framing system, all right? So I create space with the head, I disconnect head from torso, and I use my head as a frame. From here, it's hard for him to get any type of takedowns, and I can start using any different types of techniques of defense from single leg and body lock, vice versa, same thing, right? Here, I'm creating my head frame, right? It's hard for him to squeeze me in now, and I can swim for underhooks and use any other types of techniques for that. The last one is the rear body lock, right? Chest on back. So we see, especially in MMA, guys have this back position, and it's typical for guys to keep one shoulder on the mat, right? Even if they're standing up, all right, they keep one shoulder on the mat. The problem is this open side now, if he creates a blocking system at the bottom, all right, and I'm able then to get hands to mat, right? And this happens a lot, especially if guys are trying to disconnect hands here, right? Easy mat returns and so forth. So instead of that, I want to create a base, right, by facing a solid structure. So I'm going to use the cage as an advantage of mine. So if I'm facing you and this is the cage, I'm going to face the cage, put my head towards the wall, lean into the wall. And now because my head's connected, if he tries to mat return me, it's into the wall. Mat return me, it's into the wall. All right. So which means that I can't go forward. He can go to a side to a certain degree, but that gives me more stability and balance and mobility to now start hand fighting, getting disconnected, getting the inside position of the elbow. All right. So from here, instead of me doing this, I'm going to turn and I'm going to be facing the wall. So now if he mat returns me, he can't mat return me because the fence is helping me. Yes, he can block me, right, and he can try and take me this way, but it's much more difficult. For him to send me backwards, I need to have my head in line with my hip. So right now my head is over my hip. As soon as I come high, now I'm going to fall over because my head becomes center of my hip. So I put my head forward and now he tries to mat return, hard mat return, pulling me backwards. It's much more difficult, and that gives me time to start getting any different types of techniques and systems to escape that position. All right, really good concept for you guys to understand. Once you understand that concept, you can start implementing different types of techniques of your choice. Again, first one is body position and how we need to turn towards the head and use the wall to advantage and lean into the wall. The next one is disconnection of hands, getting a 2-on-1 on the hands and not allowing the grip. Third one is creating a frame with our head, especially on upper body takedowns, the body lock and this high single leg, disconnecting their head from our torso, using our hands at first and then creating a frame with our head that will give us the space balance to implement any type of defensive techniques. Third one, rear body lock, okay, chest on back, especially for MMA, all right? When we're on the walls, if you're standing up or the guy's shot and taking your back, instead of being on the side of the cage, face the cage. If I face the cage, I use the cage as my advantage. I have less chance of mat returns, less chance of getting taken backwards and forwards, and that will give me the time and space to start implementing techniques of breaking grips and turning back into them. All right, so hopefully these concepts of wrestling defense helps you a lot. We know Tim's definitely used them in his fights. Any other questions for these concepts? No? All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed these concepts. Comment down below if you guys need any more help on these techniques.